Welcome into episode number 129 of The Voice Behind the Voice. I'm Sean Aronson, the TV and radio broadcaster of the St. Paul Saints, an independent minor league baseball team in the Twin Cities. Well, when I did the recording last week for the Open, I was standing in Dodger Stadium before game 163, and of course you know by now that it turned out on the positive side for the team that I root for. It was a lot of fun, too. Not only did I get to go to the game, but a couple of guys were there that are helping us, or you've heard me talk about this, potentially film a reality show about the Saints in 2019. They were at the game. They've got season tickets. Their tickets are probably about 10 feet past first base, first row. So you could literally reach over and touch the field. They found out that I was there and invited me down to their seats. So I had as good a seats as possible down there. The crowd was into it, 46,000 people. It's great. And now here we are into the playoffs. And as I talk to you, it is, about 8 hours or so before Game 4 between the Dodgers and the Braves. I'm not sure. Well, let's put it this way. I hope the Dodgers make a run. I don't think they're as good a team as they were a year ago. I think their bullpen leaves a lot to be desired, but I'm hoping they can make a run. Congratulations to the Milwaukee Brewers. What they did in their opening series to the Rockies was impressive, and if the Dodgers are fortunate enough to get by the Braves, it's going to be a pretty interesting series because the Brewers have sort of changed the way you look at starting pitching in the playoffs, right? They've basically started bullpen guys each of the first 3 games of the playoffs. But playoffs are underway. It's exciting. It's fun to watch. And while the baseball playoffs start around here, we sort of begin to turn the page to 2019, which is kind of odd considering it's October and we've got a long way to go until 2019. But that's the way it works in minor league baseball, which is why I'm dressed like this now, because we start focusing more on the business side, as I tell everyone, the least sexy side of the job. So it's pretty much really all that's going on right now. I'll let you know if I get any word on this potential reality show for next year. The company, which is called Paperclip Limited, has already sent out. It's about a 30-minute episode right now. So I don't know if this would technically be episode number 1 or part of episode number 1, but I was fortunate enough to see it when I was back at home. They did a tremendous job with it. They have already sent it to one of the head people at Netflix, and now they are going to spend the month of October going around to different streaming services, whether it be the Amazons, the Hulus, or Yahoo, or whoever it is, and pitching this show in hopes of following us around for 2019. So if it happens, I'll let you know. And then if it does happen, and as we get closer to next year, I'll let you know all the little intricacies and ins and outs and when the show would air. But a long way to go, but they do have a lot of connections. Matter of fact, they gave me a DVD actually it was a Blu-ray of a movie that they did that won the People's Choice Award or the Viewers' Choice Award at South by Southwest. So I have not watched it yet, but it won an award. It's a little independent film. It's got a couple of named actors in it, and I think the premise of it is this guy that's a heavy gambler now starts to open up gambling for kids' sporting events. So he goes to like Little League baseball games, and parents are able to make wagers with him in terms of betting on these kids' sports. I haven't watched it yet. I just saw a trailer of it, but hey, it won an award at South by Southwest, so that's pretty good. With that said, let's get to episode number 129, and this has been 2 years, maybe 2.5 years in the making. It is Joe Davis of the Los Angeles Dodgers. When I first started this podcast back in March of 2016, and I was in Las Vegas for the Pac-12 basketball tournament, and I was building up the base of interviews before I went live, I did not realize Joe Davis was in town until I was watching one of the games at one of the sports bars there, and I saw that's Joe Davis, and he had just gotten the Dodgers job in terms of doing the road games for the Dodgers. I have someone back here in St. Paul that had been connecting with Joe Davis, just trying to learn more about the business. At the time, he was a college student and someone that I do Hamlin University basketball and football games with. And I reached out to him and I said, I know you've connected with Joe. Do you have his email address? And I reached out to Joe at the time. Joe emailed me back almost immediately, and he said, look, I'd love to sit down and do it with you. This was after the semifinal games for the Pac-12 tournament. He said, but I'm doing the championship game tomorrow, and I don't know much about either team. I've got to prep. And he said, whenever you want to do it, you just let me know. Well, there have been a couple other times where I was going home, and I reached out to him, and just our schedules never synced up, and it finally did a couple of weeks ago when I was home. He was kind enough to invite me into his house. A lot of thanks goes out to his wife, who was there as well, their house going through renovation. But he was kind enough to invite me to his house. We sat down. We did this at his home. Two things to note about this. We sat down the day after game 163. He was going to do the national broadcast. Remember, he's the Dodger broadcaster, but on television, so he's not doing the Dodger series, except he is now for the national Fox Sports broadcast. But when we were talking, he didn't know where he was going to go yet. It was dependent upon, I think, whether Chicago and Milwaukee, I think that game 163 was that day, or that wild card game. I think it came down to the wild card, whether Chicago and Colorado, whoever won that game, depended upon where he was going to go. And had Chicago won, he would have gone and done the Chicago series. But since Chicago lost, he's doing the Dodger series. So the interesting thing about this is he's currently doing the Dodger series on national television, but he's got to play it down the middle as the Dodger broadcaster. It's always kind of an interesting dynamic. The second thing I'll say, I did not ask the Vin Scully question. You want to know about what it's like to sit in the seat that Vin Scully had? He's been asked 1,000,001 times. You can go online and look it up and see his answer. I didn't want to be the guy that asked it again. With that said, I want you to listen to the very first question I asked him, and I thought it was pretty humorous, and so did he. It comes right off the bat, the way that I preface the first question. I throw him a huge curveball to begin with, and I think you'll enjoy it. If you have not subscribed to the podcast, you can do so on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to follow us on social media, Twitter @TheVoiceBTV, Facebook, facebook.com/TheVoiceBTV, and you can always email me, thevoicebtv@gmail.com. All right, let's get to it. Episode number 129. It is Joe Davis of the Los Angeles Dodgers. JW, roll the open.
I handwrote a letter to Len, and we were going to walk it up to the press box security guy when we got there, put it in my pocket after we parked through Wrigleyville, and we got to the press box, and I reached into my pocket, and it was gone. I dropped it at some point over that mile walk, so I was bummed out about that, but Cubs lose. We're riding that 4-hour ride back home to Michigan, and I get a voicemail, and it's the owner of the Taco Bell across the street from Wrigley Field saying somebody had found my letter, and she said it has a footprint on it, but other than that, everything's good, and brought it into her, and she was going to make sure that it got delivered to Len when they got back from their upcoming homestand.